Hello, everybody. Long time no see. For those that don't know, I've been away for about a week in Mexico. I was on vacation, and I come back to find out that Royale High Twitter community is currently on flames because of the new Advent sort of chess situation with the Christmas event, and we have a lot to talk about, so let's get straight into it. For those that don't know, I've been away for a week. All of my videos from the past week were pre-recorded, so that's why I wasn't really responding to comments, because contrary to popular belief, guys, I'm not chronically online. I have not been on my phone for like the past week, so catch back up now. But anyways, so I was sent this video idea by a couple of you guys, which I will credit accordingly in the description below. But basically, there is a lot of drama right now with Royale High, specifically with their choice for doing this year's kind of Christmas event. Now, I'm gonna be honest, this video will have some hot takes in it, but be prepared. I'm sure Royale High Twitter community is ready for this. Get ready, guys. Get your keyboards out. But anyways, basically, for those of you that don't know, on November 27th, Royale High made an announcement on their Twitter talking about how they're going to be doing a Glitterfrost treasure hunt that officially was beginning on that day. Now, for those of you that don't know, there's different seasons in Royale High, Glitterfrost being the Christmas one. That's kind of their name for it, which I think is super, super cute. But basically, typically in the previous years, at least from what I remember from when I was younger, they would have a sort of advent calendar, similar to games like Animal Jam, where every day that you logged in, you could basically claim like a free prize or like diamonds or an item or something like that. And players really liked it because it allowed people who are new to the game to actually get into the game, and it made the game have a lower barrier to entry during the holiday season when most players were away from school or on Christmas break. Now, this year, Royale High decided that on November 27th, they were going to launch a different kind of Christmas thing where instead of doing the advent calendar, they are now doing daily treasure hunts. So these treasure hunts basically occur where Royale High will post like a little hint on their Twitter account, and they will then hide a chest somewhere in the map. And the first 3 people to find the chest basically get a bigger reward, and then everybody else who finds it after that point gets diamonds as well. Now, the main issue that I've seen, and we're going to go over some comments, is that people are really upset that they got rid of the advent calendar and have replaced it for this sort of what people claim as being like a money grabby sort of event, which I don't know if I agree with. But regardless, if you're the first person to find the chest in the whole game, you get 50,000 diamonds, which is nothing to laugh at. I think that's a pretty generous amount. Second place is 25,000 diamonds. Third place is 10,000. And after that, the amount of diamonds in the chest varies by day, but you have 24 hours to claim that specific day chest before the next chest for the next day arrives, and you can no longer claim the diamonds from the previous day. So Royale High announced this, and it resets at 12 p.m. EST, which I understand everybody has different time zones, and so for some people this is very early or very late at night, so it is kind of annoying for some people who have different time zones. And that's the main criticism that I've seen, is that this is kind of like an unfair method, and that the advent calendar was a fairer way to do these sort of Christmas giveaways. Now, I'm going to go ahead and go to some comments that people have left, because I think people have some pretty decent things to say, and then I'll add in my own kind of controversial opinions later in the video, which I know a lot of you guys on Twitter absolutely love. Just kidding, you guys hate me. Anyways, this person wrote, low-key disappointed with Royale High right now. With December comes Glitterfrost / Christmas. With Christmas comes the calendar, right? They're talking about the advent calendar. The daily goodies, dorm items, maybe a few snazzy cozy items. No, you get none of it this year. You get a darn treasure hunt. Super festive. I have been waiting for this moment all year to see what Barbie has in store, even if it's last year's items, but no, we get this. I'm low-key disappointed. The royal calendar was like a yearly Christmas and birthday present from Roblox to me. I'm 17, by the way. Oh well, might as well stick to this and hope I don't miss out on the chest. Already missed day 1 and day 2. Why would we start in December? Now let's make it November. And this is also a criticism that I've seen, and keep in mind these are all comments that are posted publicly, but I do blur the usernames because I don't need people harassing each other for having opinions, and this is labeled as a rant, so they're of course entitled to their opinion. But basically, a lot of people are complaining that the treasure hunt started in November, which I agree. I think that's kind of like a weird time to start it. I would have liked if maybe they did like a hint beforehand to let players know, so players could have been prepared for this, but regardless, Royale High can do whatever they want. It's their game, right? Who am I to tell them what to do? However, I do understand some of the disappointment with the daily goodies and, you know, the advent calendar. And my speculation, my thought, which I'll get into later, is Roblox stopped paying game developers for players just sitting in their games, or players just joining their game. Now they only pay players, or games, when players are actively playing the game. They're called, what is it, active player base or something like that? There's a technical word for it. But that basically means that people are moving around. People are engaging with the game. They're purchasing things in the game for in-game currency or Robux, and they're doing stuff. Because to Roblox, players who are engaged with the game are higher spenders. Because think of it. If you've ever played a game, you're like, I don't really like this game. You kind of sit there. Are you likely to spend money on that game? No, you're probably just joining the game, looking around, collecting your daily reward, and leaving. And I think that's what Royale High noticed. In my opinion, that's my speculation, in previous years was that players were just joining Royale High for like 5 minutes to quickly claim their advent calendar item and then were logging off. However, if they did something like a treasure hunt where it requires players to look around, to explore the game, to look in different realms and old campuses and stuff like that, that encourages players to spend more time in the game and be more active players, which then in turn gives Royale High more money. And on top of that, I do have to give Royale High credit for this. This is a very, very smart marketing tactic, because when you have a daily sort of treasure hunt, it encourages content creators, specifically Royale High content creators on TikTok and YouTube, to create videos to tell their audiences about these chests, which then gives Royale High a bunch of free advertising. So I cannot take this away from Royale High. This is a brilliant marketing tactic. And I know the player base may not like it, but I do have to give Royale High credit where credit is due. This is an incredibly smart marketing tactic. It makes players more active in your game. It encourages free advertisement by giving content creators, content to make about the game, to promote the game. And they say, hey guys, I found the chest. That's going to encourage a bunch of people who watch that video to go and claim this chest so that they can get diamonds, even if they don't play Royale High a ton, because who doesn't want free diamonds, right? Now, the comments underneath this post were a little bit split. This one says, I think it was stated that you can still get the final reward if you get the chest 28 out of 31 days, so maybe you still have a chance. You've only really missed a few diamonds, really. And so what's interesting is that Royale High announced, when they announced the chest event, that for those that collected 28 out of the 31 days, that they would be eligible for a prize, which I'm really curious what this prize would be. I've heard some people saying it's going to be a halo. I don't know. I don't know if they give away a halo, which part of it too is like, if you're giving away a halo, I know people think halos in Royale High are super valuable, which they typically are, but if you're giving away a free halo or like a reward halo for this event, there's thousands of people that would have completed the event, so then the halo would be like worth a lot less than like another halo. But regardless, that is a kind of cool idea. I'm not sure if that's true or not. There's other people saying that maybe it's just going to be a ton of diamonds or an exclusive winter item. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. This person says, not to mention they could have just made it last year's advent if they hadn't put the free items in the store. Hell, they could have done both the advent and treasure hunt and still gotten less backlash. Technically 300 diamonds, but that's basically free compared to how much they cost. So something I've seen a lot is people saying, oh, just use last year's advent. And I'm gonna be honest, if Royale High did last year's advent calendar, they would have gotten a ton of backlash. I think more than they're getting right now. I think it's because people would be calling Barbie lazy. They'd be like, oh, I already have these items, I don't want this. And so that's this person's opinion. You're entitled to that. But personally, I think if they just did last year's advent, I think people would be more angry. Personally, I think I would be more frustrated as a player if I had, collected items last year thinking they were limited edition just to find out that, oh, they're back this year. You know what I mean? So I don't necessarily feel like that would have fixed, the issue. This person says, not having an advent calendar isn't an issue since it's already too late for all those accessories, but everything in the shop for more than the previous year is kind of sad. I wouldn't freak out though. It's the farming that needs to be fixed. Which I've seen a lot of people talking about the price increases in the shop and items being free, now they're paid and stuff like that, which, guys, this is something called inflation. Oh my god, we're getting to real world economics. Don't even get me started on microeconomics, guys. That was my least favorite class in my entire life. I did it twice. And I barely passed the second time. I don't know. Economics is not for me, okay? But regardless, I have talked about this in my previous videos, and inflation is definitely a real thing. And with Royale High branching out to do, in-store items, toy releases, merch lines, stuff like that, collaborations, there is a need for more money. Especially with their increased customer support, which in my opinion, from what I've seen, has become astronomically better than it used to be, with their community manager on Twitter being absolutely amazing. They obviously have to pay those people, and so that money doesn't just come out of thin air, and that results in inflation having to happen in the game, which they increase the prices of the items. And my theory was that they nerfed some of the farming methods to encourage players to spend money on the game so that they can make more money, but that is just my speculation. Who knows? Maybe they just decided, hey, let's make it more expensive, and there was no reasoning for it, which I think is highly improbable, but you never know, right? This person says, how are we getting free diamonds and still complain, bro? And this person said, for real. Which I think, I personally don't have an issue with getting free diamonds. I think people are just kind of disappointed because it was more so like, I don't know. I remember as like a kid playing that game, and like when there was the advent calendars and stuff like that, I was just excited to see like what's next. And it was always just so exciting to make new outfits. And there's always people who do like these video series where each day they would use, like, if there was an item that day, they would use the item to make like a cool outfit and stuff like that, which I thought was really cool, and it was a really cool series idea. However, like I discussed previously, that encouraged players to just quickly join the game and claim the item and leave and come back when it was, a good time for them. But with there being, the first 3 people to find these chests, get more money, like significantly more money, that encourages players to be like stalking the game and waiting for the update and to be playing the game for long periods of time. Which again, guys, I can't crucify Royale High for this. It is a brilliant marketing tactic. It is incredibly intelligent, and I know it's maybe not necessarily in the best interest of their player base, but I have to give it to them from a business perspective. This is absolutely like really, really smart. This person says, and this is also a rant, guys, keep that in mind. Okay, I know all I do on here is complain, but oh my god, same twin. Okay, I know all I do on here is complain, but is it just me who thinks the new update is ridiculous? Why are you angry at free diamonds? I'm angry because of how everything is priced in Royale High. How is blank 1,000 diamonds every day gonna cover for that? At least with items, you can style them in your outfits and you won't have to spend money to buy overpriced Christmas items that used to be free. Which I think this is a very valid point to make. What they did is the bare minimum. There's so much stuff that they need to fix, and they're clearly blinding us with all these updates. They can't fix the problem with people who have played since the rise of the game to its downfall, not winning Halos. They can't fix the problem with masculine players can't make decent looking outfits. And don't get mad, don't get me started on players who have anywhere from 5 to 10 million plus diamonds, and the game telling players who barely have anything that they're ungrateful for not appreciating the bare minimum. It's like stopping by a starving man who can't afford food, pointing to the crumbs in his hands, and then telling him it's better than nothing while you eat a sandwich in front of his face. I don't mean to be dramatic, but Royale High is nearly unplayable at the prices of everything. Which, this is a totally valid opinion to have, and I understand this is a sentiment that a lot of players share. There are some players who have played the game since, its start, and players who, which this is what I find, this is just my opinion, which I know people won't like, but what I find is that players who played the game a long time, examples such as myself, which I can say from the perspective of someone who's played the game a while, and my childhood account is worth a decent amount of diamonds. Like I have the Witching Hour Halo, I believe I had the Valentine's 2021 Halo or something like that. I had a bunch of Halos, but some really high value ones, right? And that was because I was a tradeaholic. I love trading. It's my absolute favorite pastime. I did Roblox trading on my old account. I did trading in like other games, like any other internet game you can think of, I traded. And I traded in real life, like the paperclip challenge. I love that too. That was my favorite thing. I just love trading, right? And what's interesting is I find, and as someone who has high value items in Royale High, who has played since a young age when the game was, newer and there was, like the initial campus where they had almost like the Wink style sort of setup, right? And during those times, I distinctly remember items being, in my opinion, a lot cheaper than they are now, right? And so as an OG player, or someone who played in the earlier days, not necessarily OG, but someone who played earlier, I had access to getting certain items earlier in the game for a lot cheaper than newer players now, which in turn allowed me to get more items, to trade more items, to make more diamonds, and grow my inventory astronomically faster than would take somebody today to build the same inventory. And that has to do with inflation, obviously, and that has to do with Royale High adding more features. And if you want a nicer school, it's going to cost money. If you want these features, it's going to cost money. I get that, right? And to be fair, the very OG Royale High, I love that game, right? But it wasn't necessarily the best. Some of the building was questionable. Parts were clipping through each other. It was glitchy, that's just like any game when it's starting out, right? But what I think is interesting, and I think a lot of high value players forget, is that not to say it was easier, but coming from somebody who played the game a while ago and, who has a big inventory, I'm trying to say this to like emphasize that I have experience and that this is my perspective. It was a lot easier for me to grow my inventory than it would be for somebody today, in my opinion. I think, with all of the items being so highly priced, with the inflation on trading websites like Tradery, and people always wanting excessive overpays for their items and stuff like that, and with new Halos coming out and those Halos rising astronomically in price and being falsely inflated through fake trades and stuff like that, right? There's a lot of market manipulation and stuff like that wasn't there when I was starting. And I think it is unfortunate when rich players in the game put on this facade that, oh, you just have to work hard, which you could say it for any game, right? You could say, oh, you just have to work hard. But think about an example, the housing market, which I know a lot of you guys probably don't know about because you're younger, but especially in the United States, housing prices have skyrocketed. And the running joke is that your grandparents probably could have bought a house for a couple cents. I'm just kidding. It wasn't that cheap. But they could have bought a house for significantly cheaper now. And now houses are hundreds of thousands of dollars in some states where it's basically just unattainable with the minimum wage or just wages in that specific state to afford a home. And so it's just kind of like this, how economics in real life are replicated in Roblox in some ways. And I think it's unfair example if you just tell kids nowadays, oh, just work harder to buy a house, when the amount of money that they can make at their job, even if they have education, is still not enough for a down payment on a mortgage. It's still not enough to meet the monthly mortgage payments and stuff like that, And so You know, it's unfortunate that it seems like real world markets and marketing trends are transferred into Roblox, because Roblox should be fun and it's, you know, meant to be like a break from your real life. It's not meant to be like, oh, I gotta pay my Roblox taxes. Bloxburg, which I'm glad they took that stuff out, but that's a whole other video. But it is unfortunate that the inflation has kind of translated over, and I think it's not very nice when players fail to recognize that, hey, it's a lot harder to become rich in Royale High now, at least in my opinion, with all the items costing more and with the farming methods being significantly nerfed, and you know, there isn't as many opportunities for players to make a ton of diamonds as there were previously. It's really hard to get rich, okay? And it makes players feel disillusioned when they spend so much time at the fountain wishing every day to try and get a halo, or they spent years doing that, or they spent years trading, and it feels like they're still at the very first step because they just can't catch a break. Every time they get close to getting what they want, the price rises again, or every time they get close to something, another halo gets released and boom, all the prices skyrocket again. You know what I mean? So it's really frustrating, and I understand that. And I think it's unfortunate that with all the stuff being nerfed in the game and these chest amounts not really reflecting the actual prices of how much it costs to buy games or items within the game itself, right? Which I'm not saying that 1,500 diamonds is bad. I'm not saying, you know, that we should be ungrateful for that, because I think that's still diamonds, right? But I do kind of share the sentiment of this person in the sense that, okay, you want to have diamonds, they're giving us diamonds. That's nice. I like the advent calendar, but you're going to give me diamonds, okay, whatever, and I can just buy what I want. But the issue is the diamonds in those chests, unless you're the first 3 people to find it, which is really difficult when you're competing with thousands of other people, you basically get no diamonds if you aren't the first 3 people to get it, right? And sure, 1,500 diamonds is a good amount, and the diamond amount fluctuates daily, but it's like when a pair of shoes is like 40,000, 50,000 diamonds, I just bought a 50th of a shoe. That's nice. You know, like, what am I going to do with that? And so I understand the frustration, and I think this is a pretty complex issue, and I do hope that maybe if Royale High sees some of the community feedback, that they will, you know, take it into consideration and maybe slightly adjust the prices or the amount of diamonds that are in some of these chests to allow, you know, more players to get access to it. But unfortunately, at the end of the day, Royale High is a company. It is a business, which I think people fail to understand, and that in turn means they have to make money. So they can't just be, you know, a charity where they're constantly giving out free item, free item, free item, here you go, here you go, here you go, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, I do understand the sentiment that it's not a ton of diamonds. And on the other hand, I understand people are frustrated with, oh, the first 3 people get way more, that's not fair. Personally, I don't know about that thing. At the end of the day, nothing in life will be fair. And I know it's an easy thing to say, but it's like there has to be some incentive for players to have a competitive nature in finding the chests to encourage people to play the game and to, you know, be really involved with the game. Because if there wasn't, you know, any competitiveness to it, if there wasn't the, you know, illusion that you could attain 50,000 diamonds, or, you know, which it's not unattainable, but it's really hard to attain, right? If there wasn't that illusion, there wouldn't be any incentive for players to be as attached to the game. There wouldn't be incentive for players to log in right away at the beginning of the day, right? It would just be like, oh, I'll log in after dinner and just get my 1,500 diamonds, like whatever. But for those of us that want more diamonds, those of us that want to get high value items, there's a lot of incentive to be very active in the game, which is a very, honestly, incredibly smart marketing tactic, and I can't take that away from Royale High. So with that in mind, let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section below. Again, as somebody who likes to think of things from a business perspective, of course, my channel is a business. A lot of the stuff that I do is, you know, obviously to make money and stuff like that, like any other person. I try to always think of things from a business perspective and from a perspective of making money, in the sense of how these games operate, rather than, you know, villainizing them. But with that in mind, let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section below. Would you prefer an advent calendar? Do you think the chest amounts are too low? Do you think they're good? What do you think about the first 3 players getting significantly more diamonds? Let me know in the comment section below, and please remember to be respectful and kind. Everybody's entitled to their opinions. You don't gotta be nasty to somebody because they have a different opinion than you. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.